Are you sick fucks? Want to dive into some seriously fucked up shit today?
Lay it on me.
We're talking about the Maya.
Ah, those guys.
And let me tell you, these bastards were way more hardcore than those history books let on.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, way more.
Yeah.
We've got a real expert here to walk us through it all. Get ready for lost cities, blood rituals, all that crazy shit.
Looking forward to it.
Basically, we're taking you down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, but with someone who, actually knows what the fuck they're talking about.
I'll try my best.
Now, before we get to the really juicy stuff, let's just, bust some myths, clear the air. Everyone thinks the Maya just vanished, right?
Oh, yeah, gross.
Poof, gone.
Yeah.
But guess what? They're still around. Over 6 million people speak Mayan languages today.
Yeah, the Maya civilization, it went through some changes, but their culture's still very much alive.
Right, it transformed.
Yeah, it's more accurate to say it transformed than just disappeared.
Transformed, I like that. And here's another thing. They weren't just peaceful stargazers, chilling out, studying the cosmos. These guys were obsessed with war.
Oh, yeah.
Capturing enemies, taking trophies.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking heads, folks.
Skulls, the whole thing.
Seriously fucked up.
For a long time, people, they thought the Maya were all about astronomy and peace-loving priests,
Right.
But in the last few decades, scholars have been deciphering more and more of their writing.
Yeah.
Turns out these guys were total warmongers, fascinated with violence and ritual.
So the history books were basically sugarcoating these bloodthirsty bastards.
Maybe not sugarcoating, but yeah, our understanding has definitely evolved.
It's like history's always being rewritten,
It's true, yeah. New discoveries are always being made.
All right. So enough with the myths. Let's get to the really juicy stuff. Blood sacrifice. Imagine a world where your king, right? He's considered a god king. He's the link between you and the supernatural.
Right.
And what do these divine asstats love?
What's that?
Blood.
Ah, yes. Blood was seen as incredibly powerful. It was life force, a way to nourish the gods and keep the universe in balance.
Okay, so they weren't messing around with this sacrifice business.
Not at all.
I mean, we're talking decapitation, heart removal.
All kinds of, all kinds of ritual.
Whole 9 yards. And the imagery, man, it's gruesome.
There's evidence of all sorts of sacrificial practices. It's in their art, their writing, even archaeological evidence.
Like what?
There's, that ball player sculpture at Chichen Itza?
Yeah.
The one with the decapitated player, serpents coming out of his neck?
Well, yeah.
Powerful image of death and rebirth.
Fucked up.
Pretty messed up, yeah.
But it's also kind of fascinating. Like, what the hell were they thinking? Why did they believe this stuff?
Well, that's the beauty of studying history, right? You get to step outside your own time and place and try to understand how other cultures viewed the world.
Okay, I get that.
For the Maya, blood sacrifice was deeply connected to their cosmology. It wasn't just violence. It was about maintaining order, keeping the gods happy.
Keeping the world from falling apart.
Right, ensuring the survival of their world.
So they had these kings, they had wars. Did these things ever, clash?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
It wasn't one big happy family. You had all these different city-states, each with their own king and their own ambitions.
Yeah.
They fought over territory, resources, power, the usual stuff.
And we're not talking about some petty little squabbles.
No, these conflicts were brutal. There's this one example, the capture and sacrifice of the Copan king by his own vassal.
Really?
Real Game of Thrones shit.
Cold-blooded.
Yeah.
So these Maya kings, they weren't just sitting around sipping cocoa watching the stars.
No.
They were playing a dangerous game.
They were. High stakes, for sure.
All right, enough with the blood and guts for a minute. Let's talk about city life. We're talking about sprawling cities built with stone tools and no wheels.
Amazing, isn't it?
Seriously, how the fuck did they move those giant stones? Boggles the mind.
It really does. It speaks to their ingenuity.
Yeah.
They must have used ramps, rollers, levers, and a whole lot of manpower to move those massive blocks.
So they were like the CrossFit champions of the ancient world.
Yeah.
Hauling ass with those giant stones.
Something like that.
Okay, so what kind of buildings did they create?
Well, pyramids, obviously.
Yeah.
Which were used as temples and burial sites.
Right.
But they also built these elaborate palaces for their kings, ball courts for their ritual games. They even had observatories.
Wait, observatories?
Yeah, for tracking the stars.
So they weren't just messing around with blood sacrifices. They were serious about their astronomy, too.
Astronomy was fundamental to their culture. They believed that the stars and planets influenced everything,
Yeah.
Their lives, destinies, even the fate of their civilization.
So they're keeping track of the cosmos, building these crazy cities, waging wars, and sacrificing
That
people.
was a busy time.
Sounds exhausting, honestly.
They were a complex and dynamic civilization. There's still so much we don't know.
I bet.
We've only just scratched the surface.
Right, folks. That's it for part 1 of our Maya mindfuck.
We'll be back for more.
We've busted some myths, we dove into their bloodthirsty rituals,
We've only just begun.
and we've marveled at those architectural achievements. But there's a lot more to come.
Stay tuned.
We'll be back with part 2, where we'll dive even deeper into this crazy world.
Welcome back. Ready for more Maya madness?
Hell yeah! Last time we were talking about those badass cities they built, but before their shit went sideways, these dudes had a crazy system for keeping track of time. It wasn't just like sundials and shit, right?
Oh no, their calendar system was incredibly sophisticated. They tracked the sun and moon, of course, but they also followed Venus, eclipses, even other planets.
Get out of here.
And get this, their calculations were shockingly accurate, even compared to, like, Europe at the same time.
Hold up. More accurate than those stuffy Europeans. No way. How do you figure?
In some cases, their calculations were even more precise than the Julian calendar used in Europe. They nailed the length of the solar year, for example, way more accurately.
Damn.
Imagine figuring that out without telescopes or computers.
Those Maya, they're some seriously smart motherfuckers. Okay, break it down for us. How did this calendar thing actually work? Was it all human sacrifice schedules and doomsday predictions?
It's complicated, but basically they had these interlocking cycles, different lengths. There was a 260-day cycle.
260 days? What the hell?
Yeah, it's called the Tzolk'in. Probably used for stuff like planting seasons, religious rituals, that sort of thing.
So like a Maya Farmer's Almanac or something.
Something like that. Then there was the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar. That's more like what we use today.
Okay, that makes sense. But 260 days, were they counting on a different planet or what?
It's still a bit of a mystery. Some scholars think it's related to, like, the human gestation period or maybe agricultural cycles.
Yeah.
They used it for all sorts of things. Predicting the weather, figuring out the best time to plant crops, even making predictions about a person's fate.
So like ancient Mayan horoscopes
Yeah.
based on this bizarre calendar.
Exactly.
That's kind of cool. What else you got?
Oh, then there's this mind-blowing thing called the long count. It measured time from a fixed point in the past, like way back in 3114 BC.
31114 BC. That's like forever ago.
That was their creation date. Imagine thinking that far back.
Seriously. So what was the point of this long count thing anyway?
Yeah.
Just to keep track of how old the universe was.
It was more than just a cosmic clock. The long count was a way to understand their place in this huge cosmological framework.
Okay.
They believed in these vast cycles of creation and destruction, and the long count helped them make sense of it all.
Right.
Like where they fit in this grand scheme of things. A cosmic calendar, tracking the rise and fall of entire civilizations.
Well, I'm starting to get a headache just thinking about all these calendars and cycles and stuff.
It's a lot to take in.
But here's what I really want to know. How did they write all this shit down? Were they like carving it into stone tablets? Like a prehistoric Instagram or something?
They developed this incredibly intricate writing system, often called hieroglyphs.
Hieroglyphs, like the Egyptians.
Yeah, they kind of look similar at first glance, but Maya glyphs are way more complex.
How so?
They combine these phonetic symbols with logograms, which represent whole words or concepts.
So it's like a language puzzle on steroids.
You could say that.
Did they have libraries full of these scrolls?
Sadly, most of their written records were destroyed. Those Spanish asshats during the conquest. Talk about a cultural crime.
For real?
But we do still have a few surviving examples, like the Dresden Codex.
What's that?
It's this beautifully illustrated book full of astronomical tables, calendars, rituals.
That's cool.
It's like a window into their minds, you know?
So who are the guys who actually wrote all this stuff down? Were they like these super nerds with quill pens hiding away in their, what do you call them, scriptoriums?
Scribes. They were part of the elite class, highly skilled and respected.
I bet.
You often see them in Maya art wearing these elaborate costumes and headdresses. They recorded everything: historical events, royal lineages, rituals, astronomical observations.
So basically like the historians, the scientists, the priests, all rolled into one.
Exactly. Keepers of knowledge in Maya society. Imagine the power they had, being able to interpret the will of the gods, predicting the future.
Right, time for a little math. Because I know these guys were obsessed with numbers. Did they Like have calculators or something?
They didn't need calculators. They had this sophisticated mathematical system
Like what?
based on a base 20 structure.
Oh, well.
Base 20, unlike our base 10.
Hmm.
And get this, they had a concept of zero, which was revolutionary for the time.
Hold on, base 20. That sounds like a recipe for a migraine. What the hell is that all about?
Think about it. They probably used their fingers and toes to count.
Ah, makes sense.
So 20 digits to work with. It's actually pretty clever.
Yeah, I guess so.
And combined with the concept of zero, it allowed them to do some pretty advanced calculations, especially with all those intricate calendar cycles.
So they could, like, figure out how many prisoners they needed to sacrifice to a certain god.
I'm sure they used math for all sorts of things, rituals included, but also practical stuff like designing buildings, managing their economy, even predicting astronomical events.
Okay, enough with the numbers for now. Let's talk about something a little more aesthetic. What about their art? Was it just stick figures and blood splatters, or did they have, like, a more refined sense of style?
Maya art was incredible, incredibly intricate and expressive,
I've seen some of the carvings, pretty detailed.
full of symbolism, hidden meanings. Think elaborate carvings, colorful murals, stunning sculptures, often depicting their kings, gods, and mythical creatures.
So, like, fancy sculptures, colorful paintings, that kind of thing. Did they ever get tired of painting all those blood sacrifices?
Well, while those scenes are definitely there, they also depicted a lot of other things. Courtly life, rituals, warfare, even everyday activities. Believe it or not, they even had a sense of humor.
Wait, humorous scenes? Like, what, a Maya king tripping over his own feet during a ceremony? I bet they didn't find that funny.
Well, maybe not that, but some of their art shows these playful interactions, even satirical depictions of their leaders. They weren't just a bunch of serious-faced, bloodthirsty zealots, you know?
Okay, so they weren't all doom and gloom. What about their architecture? I mean, those pyramids, they're insane. It's like they were built by aliens or something.
Their architecture is awe-inspiring. They built these vast cities, towering pyramids, elaborate palaces, ball courts for their games.
And these observatories we talked about?
Right, and remember, all this was done without metal tools or the wheel.
It's mind-blowing. How the hell did they build those pyramids? Were they using some kind of ancient levitation technology or what?
It's a question that still baffles people today. They must have had incredible knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and construction.
Yeah. And don't forget the manpower. Imagine the sheer number of people it took to quarry those massive stones, transport them, and lift them into place.
Talk about a backbreaking job. Okay, so they built these amazing cities, had this crazy complex calendar. They wrote books, did math, made art. These guys were like the overachievers of the ancient world.
They were a highly advanced civilization, no doubt about it.
But then it all went to shit. What happened? Did they just party too hard and forget to pay their taxes or something?
Well, we talked about the collapse earlier. In the 9th century, a lot of their major cities were abandoned.
Right.
Their political systems collapsed. A lot of their knowledge was lost. It was probably a combination of factors: overpopulation, environmental problems, warfare, possibly even climate change.
So they basically screwed themselves over. Sounds familiar.
It's a cautionary tale, for sure.
Yeah.
Even the most advanced civilizations are vulnerable.
All right, so they had a good run, then they crashed and burned. But what happened to the Maya after that? Did they just disappear into the jungle, never to be seen again? Not at all. They adapted, migrated. Their culture survived. There are still millions of Maya people living in Central America today, speaking Mayan languages, preserving their heritage.
So they didn't completely vanish. They just, like, reinvented themselves. A cosmic reboot.
In a way, yes. Their civilization went through this period of upheaval, but their culture endured. It's a testament to their resilience.
That's pretty cool. So these Maya descendants, are they still running around, sacrificing people and building pyramids?
Not quite. They've obviously adapted to the modern world, but they still maintain a strong connection to their traditions.
Right.
They face their own challenges today, but they're also working hard to preserve their language, culture, history.
That's awesome. It's like they're carrying the torch, even after all this time.
Exactly. The Maya story is a reminder that history isn't just about the past, it's about the present and the future.
Welcome back, you bastards. Ready for the final chapter in this Maya mindfuck?
Let's do it.
We've talked about blood rituals, the crazy calendar, those insane pyramids.
The whole shebang.
Now I want to know, what was everyday life actually like for the average Maya dude?
Well, it wasn't all blood sacrifices and stargazing.
I imagine not.
Like any civilization, Maya society had its hierarchy. At the top, you had the elite.
The big shots.
Rulers, Priests, high-ranking warriors, they lived in those fancy palaces decked out in jade and feathers. They basically called all the shots.
Sounds like the 1% of the ancient world, living it up while everyone else busted their asses.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then you had the commoners, the farmers, artisans, laborers, the vast majority of the population.
That working stiff.
Life for them was probably a lot tougher. Work, 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 and trying to keep those gods happy.
So, no paid vacations or Netflix and chill for these guys.
Definitely not. They worked their asses off to grow crops, build those cities, create all that amazing art.
And let's not forget, warfare was always a threat.
Right, constant uncertainty and fear.
Speaking of warfare, we talked about those trophy heads and all that messed up stuff. Was everyone just like constantly at war?
Well, warfare was deeply ingrained in their culture. They fought over land, resources, prestige. But it wasn't just random violence. They had rules, rituals, capturing enemies for sacrifice. It was seen as a way to honor the gods, to show their power.
So like a fucked up version of the Super Bowl, but with human sacrifices instead of touchdowns?
In a way, yes. Warfare was a complex act, tied to their beliefs, their understanding of the cosmos.
Okay, so back to those commoners for a sec. Did they have any fun? Or was it all work and worship?
Life was tough, but they had their own forms of entertainment. Social gatherings, the ball game, for example, was hugely popular.
Oh yeah, the ball game. We talked about those crazy courts they built. But this wasn't just some game, right?
No, it was loaded with symbolism, ritual significance.
Right.
Often seen as a representation of the struggle between good and evil, life and death. And yeah, sometimes the losing team
Or the captain even, right?
faced the ultimate penalty, sacrifice.
Talk about high stakes. Lose a game. End up on the sacrificial altar. I'd be shitting myself.
Definitely adds a whole new level of intensity to the game, but it shows how deeply their religious beliefs were intertwined with their lives.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about trade. I bet those Maya elites love their fancy shit. Was it all bartering and haggling, or did they have, like, ancient Amazon Prime going on?
Trade was essential. Extensive networks stretching across vast distances,
Oppressive.
connecting different cities and regions, exchanging all kinds of goods. Jade, obsidian, cacao beans, feathers, even slaves.
House slaves. Damn, that's dark. So much for being enlightened.
Slavery was common in a lot of ancient societies, sadly. The Maya often acquired slaves through warfare or as tribute from conquered people. It's a reminder that even the most advanced civilizations can have a dark side.
So they had this whole economy built on trade and exploitation. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Like we haven't come that far after all.
Well, human nature is human nature. The Maya, like us, were driven by a lot of the same desires. Power, wealth, status.
All right, time to wrap up this Maya mindfuck. What's the takeaway here? Why should we give a shit about some ancient dudes who were obsessed with blood and weird calendars?
The Maya, despite their flaws, were an incredible civilization. Complex writing system, advanced math, a deep understanding of astronomy. Their art and architecture still blows us away. Their stories are a reminder that even the most powerful societies are fragile. And the choices we make today, they matter. They have consequences.
Deep, man. So you're saying we can learn from these ancient asshats?
Absolutely. Studying the past helps us understand ourselves, the challenges we face.
All right, you heard the expert, folks. Go out there, learn some shit about the Maya. You might just have your mind blown. And hey, maybe we can avoid making the same mistakes they did. Unless, of course, we're already screwed.
That's the question, isn't it?
And on that note, we're out of here. Stay curious, you magnificent bastards, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.